Hi everyone, this is Mike Gillahan from Bigfoot Flutes, and this video is for those who have purchased one of our flutes. Short introduction to the flute, how to hold the flute, how the flute works, and basics on how to play the flute, and common troubleshooting. The first thing you want to do with your flute is make sure that the block hasn't shifted during shipping. The block is this piece up here, and it's simply tied to the flute, and the very base of the block, right down at the very bottom, should be lined up with the back edge of the sound hole, just like that right there. The base should be lined up with the back of the sound hole. And so if it's shifted, be sure you line it up with the back of that sound hole before you get started. The next thing is how to hold the flute. When you hold the flute, there's really no right or wrong way, but for right-handed people, I start with my left hand. This is my left hand, and I'll put my index finger and my middle finger on the top two holes, my ring finger right below that. With my right hand, the first three fingers, I'll cover the bottom three holes like that. What that does with the two thumbs that are on the back is it allows me to remove all of the playing fingers and still hold the flute. It's supported between that finger on the left hand and the two thumbs. So that way you can play all the notes without having to reposition anything. The next thing we'll talk about is the pentatonic scale. This is a flute that's set up to play on the pentatonic scale, which is a common scale used by Native Americans and other indigenous people around the world. It's a really nice scale because with the pentatonic scale, if you stick to the pentatonic scale, none of the notes sound bad next to any of the other notes. So you really can't play a sour note. So I'll go ahead and play that pentatonic scale from bottom to top and back down. That's the basic pentatonic scale right there. Now, one thing I'll mention is when you play this, if you get squeaks or squawks, the most common cause of that is you're not totally covering the holes on the flutes when you cover them. When you play the flute, don't play it with your fingertips over the holes for a couple of reasons. That's going to make it hard to reach the lower holes until your hand gets used to it, and also it doesn't allow the holes to be fully covered. This meaty part on the pad of your finger should be what covers the holes, because that'll cover those holes completely. So think more like moving your fingers a little further out on that, not right like that, but a little bit further out to completely cover those holes with the fleshy part of your fingers. If you do partially cover a hole, you'll get something that sounds like this. And you'll wonder what's wrong with your flute. Well, there's nothing wrong with your flute. You just aren't completely covering the holes. Where if you did, you would get this sound. All right, moving on. This pentatonic scale is wonderful, and there's a rule to it, and that is anytime you have a hole covered, or anytime you have a hole uncovered, all the holes above that should be covered. So this is okay, this is okay, this is okay, this is okay, this is not okay, this is not okay, this is not okay, if you want to stay on the pentatonic scale. So you should practice running up and down the scale, and then practice doing some combinations of that scale that follow the rule of anytime a hole is uncovered, all of the holes above it must be covered. And I'll show you a little improvisation done by playing mixed notes like that. I just randomly selected notes to play there. And I randomly selected them on the pentatonic scale. I had no sour notes. Much Native American playing is done almost entirely on the pentatonic scale. And if you only play the pentatonic scale, you can be a very successful musician and get very good very quickly just playing that. So practice that. And again, I'll stress, when a hole is uncovered, all the holes above that should be covered. Now, later as you progress, after you get really good with the pentatonic scale, you can do some cross fingerings to get different notes that are between the notes that we're playing on the pentatonic scale. You can play things like Bolero, you can play Für Elise by Beethoven, all kinds of weird things you can play on this flute. It will play a full chromatic scale with many notes. But Native Americans and the way the flute was originally designed was, at first, please stick to that pentatonic scale. Another thing I'll mention is when you do play, there are two ways you can play. Actually, there's multiple ways, but the two most common are running the notes from one note to another without tonguing the notes and actually tonguing the notes. And I'll show you the difference here. So I was tonguing the notes and I was actually slurring the notes between one another, and that's something you can do depending on the song. And I had some squeaking in there because I actually didn't cover the holes completely when I was doing it. That was my bad. It shows you what can happen there. So again, that's tonguing the notes. Here's not tonguing the notes. And you can go either way depending on what your song needs. The next thing you can do while you're playing is you can bend the notes. And it's okay to start doing this from the beginning. And bending a note is like you would bend a note on a guitar. It makes the attack very nice and smooth. And I'll show you, bend is like a very slow lowering or uncovering of the finger from a note. We'll go ahead and do that now. That's bending a note. And the last thing I'll mention on this, I know it's a lot to take in on one viewing, but some embellishments that you can do while you're playing. And those embellishments can be added anywhere within a song, and you can start doing that right from the beginning. The simplest one is probably the flutter, and that's when you simply take a finger and flutter it open and closed over a hole. And it gives it a very native, organic sound. I'll show you a little bit here. So that's really not hard to do. Anybody can do that. And the next one would be a chirp. And a chirp, we kind of break the rules a little bit. On a chirp, we will very briefly uncover a hole above holes that are covered. And that's just to vary the sound for an instant. And I'll show you. That can either be done during the middle of long notes or while you're changing notes. It makes a different kind of sound. So when you put all of these together, playing the pentatonic scale, adding some flutters and possibly some embellishments and some random notes, you can get a really nice song out of it. Go. I would watch this video again. If you have any questions, you can go to bigfootflutes.com. There's a contact form, and I'd be willing to answer any questions or help you troubleshoot your playing. Thank you very much for watching.